Alright, hello again. This is Jeff Scott at Blackhawk Technical College, and welcome to the Chapter 2 lecture for our SAMS Teach Yourself, AngularJS, JavaScript, and jQuery all in one. So I'm on around page 35, I think, of the text, and going over lesson 2 now. This lesson is all about debugging JavaScript and web pages. So you can see we've got about a half dozen objectives here. Learn where to find information that is outputted from JavaScripts, how to debug problems with HTML elements, ways to more easily find and fix problems with CSS Layout, methods to view and edit the DOM live in the web browser, how to quickly find and fix problems in JavaScript, what information is available to analyze network traffic between the browser and the web server. And as the author mentions in here, debugging can be hard. Alright, sometimes it's very easy to look at an error and look right through it and say, well, I didn't do that or whatever. So, as the author mentions, excellent tools have been created to help quickly and easily find problems in scripts. This chapter is a lesson on the basics of debugging JavaScript using browser development tools. And in particular, as it says, the lesson uses the Chrome developer tools. So I will be doing the same. One of the first development tools you want to become familiar with is the Developer Tools console. That's the interface to output from JavaScripts. Error and log messages are displayed there. And the author says, we're going to go through all this stuff. For example, when an error in the script results in the browser not being able to parse it, the error should be displayed in the console. In addition to errors, you can use the console.log statement to write your own debugging statements. Alright, the developer tools can be accessed in Chrome using F12 or Control-Shift-I on Windows or Command-Shift-I on Mac. Well, you need to have a browser up and running, and I do. So let's try F12 and see what happens. Well, I've actually got this right here. I've got Firefox running, so let's bring it up here. In fact, let's bring up Blackhawks. So we'll bring up blackhawk.edu and see if we hit F12, if it does bring up the developer tools. And there they are. All right. So when you open the developer tools, you see a series of tabs. The console tab acts as the interface to the JavaScript output. Console.log and error messages are displayed here. So as you can see right over here, alright, there's our console area in here. Alright, I'm going to be constantly switching back and forth in here between this document, which is open in Firefox, and the Chrome developer tools, which of course is open in Chrome. It says, notice that in the message position here, there are two types of messages. One is a log statement, and the second is an error. Both show the line number to the right. It says if you click the line number, you'll go directly to the code. Note that in the error message, the top portion refers to the error that occurred, and the bottom shows the actual script line. Now that is when it says the actual script line, that is the line that where the compiler basically found the error. It may not be the exact line itself. Alright, so it says the simplest way to understand this is to debug an actual script. Consider the code listing in 2.1, which has several errors. Use the following steps to add the listing to your project in Eclipse. It says right-click the project and select New Folder from the menu. Name the folder Lesson 2 and click Finish. Right-click the new folder and select New File from the menu. Name the file JSErrors.html. Type the contents of the listing into 2.1, or if you have the file from the website, cut and paste it and put it into a new file. So this is the file we're going to be working with. And to try to make it a little easier for myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to source code here, I'm going to go to source code unzipped, final code, chapter 2, jserrors.html. So this file that you can see here, right there, it's the same one that's shown in the book on the bottom of page 37. All right. The code listing is supposed to display the message page is loaded in the console after the page has been loaded in the browser. Another message, user clicked, is displayed each time the user clicks the Click Me text button. The problem is that the script currently has several bugs. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to run this, and I'm going to tell it to launch it in Chrome. Again, we will have errors in here according to this at least. Alright, it says click the console tab to bring up the JavaScript console. So again, hit the F12 key. There we go. It says notice the errors displayed in the console as shown in figure 2.2. Alright, the first error shows that there is an unexpected identifier in line 6 of the file. Clicking the line number brings up the Sources tab at line 6. So let's click the line number. Alright, and as you can see, we spelled function wrong in there. So they tell you to go in and change the word function in line 6 to function. I'll tell you what, before I do that, I'm going to do this. Alright, so I'm going to close this. And I'll leave that open. It doesn't hurt anything. But I want to make sure that I'm working with a copy of this so I have my original. So I'm going to do a file, save as, and I'm going to save this right to the desktop. This is jserrors.html. So there it is. I'm again going to do a run, launch in Chrome. Alright, bring up the developer tools. Click for line 6. Now I can come in here as it says, and where it says FNC right there, I can change it. Tells you to use Eclipse because I believe you can't change it right in here. This will show you the error, but I don't believe you can change it in here. So let's go back into here. We're running our one from the desktop, and where we've got the word function in here, let's change it to function. Okay, let's save. Let's go back in. We'll run it again in Chrome, and we'll again hit the F12 key. All right. It says now you should see the page is loaded in the console. The text is logged in the loaded function, but no errors. Alright, it says click the Click Me text. It says an error has now been added to your console as shown in figure 2.4. In the book, the error states that click it now is not defined. If you look at the HTML file and search for click it with a W, you'll see that line 15, an on-click event was added to click it not, but that the function is actually named click it now. So we again want to come back in here, and where it says click it right there, okay, we want to change, it says there in line 15, we want to change click it now to click it and save the file. Well, mine already says click it. So let's see what's going on. There's loaded, there's click it now. So let's make this one click it now so these two are the same. So I'm going to put a now in there, save, do a run, again launch it in Chrome, and again hit the F12 key. And again, you see we have no errors right now. Click me text again. And figure 2.5 shows on page 40, it shows that both log statements, the pages loaded and the user clicked, are now displayed and there are no errors. Okay? Now that was pretty simple stuff, but yet it's pretty good because most of the stuff that you did last semester when you were looking for errors, most of the time what you ended up doing was a lot of hunt and peck and try this and try that kind of thing. Now please remember, because I've shown you this also, there is jsbin.com, and in there you can put in your HTML, your CSS, your JavaScript, etc. All right? And there is also the JavaScript runner right here. All right. I think it's best to have a lot of different tools at your disposal, and you'll be able to pick and choose from what you have and to see what you want to use and what you don't want to use. All right. So I'm on to page 41 here. Gone through this, gone through this, gone through this, and we had it work. Okay? So, page 41, debugging HTML elements. HTML elements have property values that are not rendered on the screen but that will affect the behavior of a page. The element inspector and the DOM editor can help you find and fix problems in your code. All right? So, as mentioned here halfway down on the page, the element inspector enables you to view each of the HTML elements that have been parsed by the browser. Figure 2.6, which is on the next page here, shows an example of the element inspector. With the element inspector, some useful features are available to you, including, and some of them are shown here, the DOM tree, break on changes, edit as HTML, and hover and breadcrumbs. All right, and to explain those, again, let's go back and look over here. The DOM tree is mentioned. It's a simple view of the DOM tree that you can use, and you can click the arrows to expand and contract. Break on changes. By right-clicking an element and selecting break on, it allows you to set different kinds of breaks when the element is changed, removed, or something else is modified. Edit as HTML. Right-clicking an element and selecting Edit as HTML lets you directly edit the HTML code in the browser. So any change you make will take effect immediately. And hover. When you hover over the HTML code in the DOM tree, the element is highlighted in the browser. The author says he likes this. This is one of his favorites because it's a visual way to see relationships between the node and the DOM tree and the actual rendered page. And he gives you an example right here. Notice it's an H1, and that's what he is hovering over. There are also breadcrumbs, as shown here on page 42. Notice the breadcrumbs show the hierarchy of nodes from the root HTML element down to whatever is currently selected. In the next code listing here, the one shown on page 43, there's a basic HTML document with a list of movies, and it says, and the word favorite in the heading. It's supposed to be italic. It says, however, there are some problems. Everything is in italic and there is no bullet point for the first list item. Well, let's look at it first ourselves. And you'll notice right here, we've got a beginning I element, and when you look through here, there's no ending element. Okay? And if we look here at our first LI element, it's accidentally been put in as an LL element. All right, so you can already see that those are what the errors are. Okay? We can look at that, but again, the idea behind this particular example is we want to let the system take a look at it for us to kind of find out what's happening here. So the author wants us to bring that file up. Okay, I can close this. I can now close this, and this, and this. All right, so let's go and bring up, and again, we'll save it just as we did previously. We'll save it to the, we'll save it right away to the desktop. So, source code, lesson 2, HTML errors. And I'm going to immediately save this, file, save as, and I'm going to save it to the desktop. Again, it's HTML errors.html. You'll notice that if we immediately go in and run and launch this in Chrome, all right, you can already see some of the problems. All right, there's nothing here. In other words, there's no lead bullet, and there's a problem, all right, because we didn't close our I or italic element. So I've added the code. I'm opening up Chrome, and now I'm opening up the developer tools. It says click the Elements tab in the developer tools. And expand the HTML, then the body, and then the I tag. And as you can see, when you go back and take a look at this, the I tag starts here and ends here, but favorite is not inside of it. So we want to move favorite inside of the I tags and then save the document. So in other words, we want to come back to here, and we want the word favorite like this. All right, so I'll save it. I'll do a run it in Chrome, and now you can see that favorite is the way that it was supposed to be. All right, and if we expand our body tag and expand our H1, now you can see favorite is showing the way that we wanted it to show. I'm not sure why those double quotes are there, but it's not, doesn't appear to be hurting anything. The bullet point is still missing. All right, so I'm on page 45. Go back to the element inspector, and they want us to expand this. So again, they want us to come back and they say, look, it's LL right here. So you can see, if I put my mouse over this stuff, you can see, so that's the one I'm concerned with. So again, I must go back into my editor, change that LL to an LI. You'll notice it's now blue. Okay, do another run, launch in Chrome, and now you notice favorite is italicized, and Lord of the Rings now has a bullet in front of it. So much of the stuff that you do in here, I'm not going to say is simple, but it's fairly simplistic. All right. All right. Jumping back then to page 46. The author says here, viewing and editing the DOM properties of elements. Another important tool when debugging HTML is the DOM Properties Editor, which allows you to view and edit the attributes, properties, functions, children's, parents, and just about everything else about each HTML element that's in the document object model. The information is displayed in a tree format. So in figure 211 here, they're showing an example. It says, from the DOM Properties Editor, you have access to a variety of information about the browser environment. For example, in figure 211 on the bottom of the page here, on page 46, the inner HTML attribute of the window is displayed. You can also view a DOM Properties Editor for DOM objects in the console by typing the name of the object. So typically we've used this only to access the browser window object, all right? But it says to do this in the JavaScript console view in Chrome, type the word window directly into the editor. Alright, so this is now working. So they're saying type the word window directly into the editor and hit enter. And it shows a bunch of information. You see, not that much, yeah, but if we open it up, you can see there's a lot of information in here. All right. So for the next example, it says we're supposed to click the first LI element in here. All right, with that first LI element listed, click the Properties tab to the right as shown in figure 211. We did that. That's code. Developer tools. Click the Elements tab. Done that. Expand the HTML. Select the first LI. I've done that. And it says click the Properties tab to the right. We already can see it right in here. It says scroll down to find the inner HTML property in the DOM Properties Editor. Well, just like you, and it's been a while since I've looked at this, so. I right mouse clicked, and now you can see the edit text, edit as HTML, and the other stuff that we talked about before. I don't think we have to type LI in here, but I'd like to close this. LI. It says uncaught reference error, LI is not defined. Well, that was incorrect. So they show elements as being highlighted there. I'm looking at figure 211. I guess I was looking at the wrong figure. And they want us to come down here, find this, which I've done. What I don't get is here, profiles, resources, audits, none of that is helping me any. All right. There's properties. And we want LI. They're telling us to go down to the inner HTML property, which says Lord of the Rings. It says double click that value and change the text as shown. So they wanted to change this to The Hobbit. Well, didn't like that. I think what they actually want us to do is to go back. All right, it says find the inner HTML property in the DOM properties editor, which is right here. Double click the value to the right of the inner HTML attribute. And change the text as shown in 211. It says note that the HTML element rendered in the web page also changes. It is as easy as that to manipulate an editable attribute in your HTML nodes. Well, it sure didn't appear to be that easy. See, it's not allowing me to change that. One thing I've noticed here under is the content editable, it says false. Well, you know as well as I do how you can change this, but for whatever reason, it doesn't like the way I just tried to change it right there, but you saw the steps. All right. In other words, we went in here under elements, we went down and we found the first LI, we went over to the side here and went over to properties, and we were supposed to go down and find the inner HTML property. Now that's highlighting the whole thing. I have no idea. Yeah, it's still not allowing me to change it though. Okay. All right. Oops. As part of debugging your dynamic web pages, you also need to be aware of how CSS issues come up and have to be debugged, because a lot of the dynamics on web pages deal with modifying CSS layout in JavaScript. In figure 213, going back to our book, on page 49, they show the CSS Style Editor, As mentioned in the book, it provides access to all the CSS properties of elements loaded in a web page. You can access this by selecting the Elements tab in Developer Tools and selecting the Styles tab as shown in Figure 2.13. So let's see if we can do that. All right. So we want to select the Elements tab and then select the Styles sub-tab right here. When we do that, as mentioned in our book on the bottom of page 48, it says from here you have the capability to do the following. You can disable a CSS style. You can edit element-specific CSS properties. You can edit class-specific CSS properties. And you can edit element type-specific CSS properties. Also, you can toggle the element state and view and edit the layout. All right, so I believe we're going to go through another exercise next, and it looks like it is a fairly long exercise. It's 4 or 5 different pages. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. It says another extremely powerful tool when debugging CSS is the Layout Editor. In the Element Editor, the Layout Editor is shown in Figure 2.15 in our book. So let's jump back to the book and take a look on page 50, right here. Provides an easy-to-use visual interface to the CSS layout of the selected HTML element. From here, you can modify the following properties: margin, border, padding, and content. So, another exercise to help you understand debugging and editing CSS using the CSS layout, using the developer tools. It says, consider the code in listing 2.3. The code is designed to display a simple tab box to display info. Some problems exist with the CSS because it has been displayed poorly. As shown in Figure 2.16, which is on the next page here of the book, right there. So we're going to try to correct the problems that we've seen thus far. So let's go back and do what we have been doing, and that is, now I will come in here and close this, and I'll just leave that. And I got a lot of stuff open here. I'm just going to close, and I'll just leave the rest in. I'll leave the rest of it open here. All right, so I'm going to do a file, open, come down to our source code for Chapter 2, find the CSS errors, open that up, do a file, save as, and save that right to the desktop. All right, now I'm ready to start the steps on the bottom of page 52. It says they have the code. Step 1, we've done that. Open Chrome. All right. So let's do a run, launch in Chrome, and you can see what it looks like right now. Click the Elements tab in the Developer Tools. So let's bring up the Developer Tools. All right, let's move this down a tad. There we go, and move this down a tad. There we go. Click the Elements tab and expand the HTML. Then expand the body, the div, and the div ID equal container, then the div ID equal tabs. All right. Step 5, it says look at the size of the div ID equal tabs. It says the width is only 100 pixels, which is not enough room for these 3 tabs to go side by side. All right. The spans are 70 pixels wide, so the div element could not possibly support 3 tabs. To fix this problem, click the Styles tab and change the width property to 300 as shown in figure 218. Well, we want to change this to 300. And either I'm doing something wrong or there's something wrong with my editor or something else. But I want to be able to change that from 100 to 300. Alright, so we changed it to 300. It says now the tabs are now all side by side, but there's too much room between them. So it says right click on the name tab in the web page and select the inspect element from the list. Click the layout tab and hover over the margin box as shown in figure 219. Notice that there is a margin of 5 pixels around the span element. That is why they're not close enough to each other. Alright? So it says go to the Styles tab and disable the margin property for the span element. The tabs now are right together and are sitting directly on top of the box. So what you see up in your screen right now is exactly the same thing that you see in figure 220 on the top of page 56 in the text. So you look at that and it now looks the same way that it does in your book on page 56. Right there. Okay. All right. Next, we'll talk a little bit about debugging JavaScript. It says you've already learned to look for exception errors in JavaScript and other parts. It says, what if your JavaScript isn't causing any browser errors, but it just isn't working correctly? All browsers have an integrated debugger to help you out. So the following sections cover using the Chrome developer tools to debug JavaScript. All right. First, navigating the JavaScript debugger. As mentioned on the bottom of the page here, I'm on the bottom of page 56. This allows you to view the JavaScript scripts that are loaded into the browser with a web page. In addition to viewing them, you can set breakpoints, watch variable values, view the call stack, same kind of stuff you would do with any other debugger. In figure 221 on page 57, the author says that it will show you the different components that exist inside of the JavaScript debugger. The JavaScript view shows you the actual JavaScript code. Okay? The source selection menu shows you a list of the source files, including the JavaScripts loaded onto the page, and I believe that's here. The pause on exception, when selected, the browser will break into the debugger and stop executing if an exception occurs. The watch pane, which is shown over here, gives you a list of the functions, variables, properties, etc. available at the current execution of the code. The author mentions on the bottom of page 57 that this is a very valuable window because from here you can see the values of variables and objects as the code is executing. In addition, you can add your own expressions to here if you would wish to. A great feature of this pane is that you can double-click variable values and change the value used during execution. So you can play what-if types of things. There's the call stack that you see down here. That provides a history of the function calls that led up to where you currently are. There are breakpoints, which allow you to specify where to stop when you're in the middle of executing a JavaScript program. The current line, denoted by a yellow arrow. The resume, which allows the script to continue executing normally until hitting another breakpoint. The step into, which allows you to advance a line. The step over, which also allows you to advance a line, but if you are inside of a loop or whatever, it'll basically step through it. And the step out, right there. As it says, when you click this icon, the current function finishes executing and you're taken to the next line of code in the calling function. So the example that starts here on the bottom of page 58, as the author mentions, the following example will help you become more familiar with a JavaScript debugger. It says, consider the code listing in 2.4, which is in your book on page 59. It's a basic web page with a button and a count string. There are two div elements. The first is used for the simple button. When you click the button, JavaScript function count should be called. The second is used to display a number. The JavaScript is supposed to increase the number by 1 each time it's clicked. All right, but now there's a problem that it will not increase past 2. So here's the code we're about to look through, and as they mention here, these are the steps we're going to follow that are on pages 59, 60, 61, and 62. All right, so we're going to do these right now. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to bring up the code. So again, we don't need this. And we want to open up from here in our source code for Chapter 2. This file is debug.html. All right. So I've gone through, I've added the code, I've opened up Chrome. I want to open up my Chrome tools. Oops, not there, I'm sorry. Well, that wasn't good. So let's see if I can close this. That's what happens when you click the wrong button, I guess. I'm going to pause this for just a second. Attempt to pause this for just a second. Doggone it. Boy. A little extreme, but don't end that task. Good. All right. Let's bring this up again. We're again going to come in, and from our desktop we're going to open up our source code. Let's write this way. There we go. So we want to come in here, and now we want to do a run in Chrome. All right, there's the click me button, F12. All right. Alright, it says click the Sources tab in the Developer Tools and then select the debug.html from the menu. It says you should see the code listing from 2.4 in the Sources area of the debugger. There's Sources, there's Debug, okay? Set a breakpoint on line 8 by clicking to the left of the line number. Okay, that should have done it. Now click the button on the web page. You should see that line 8 of the debugger is highlighted. Well, I don't see it highlighted. But I should be right there. It says my breakpoint debug line 8. The function will determine what value to be placed in the counter. Notice that the value of the count variable in the Scopes tab is undefined. We're told here to click the Step Over tab. It says you should see the value of count go to 1. Well, I'm a little bit behind. Click the button on the web page. You should see line 8 in the debugger highlighted. The script has stopped executing on that line. The function will determine what value is placed there. Well, the thing is, it's not running. It says here line 8, and that's good. And there we are. So you saw that when I clicked right there. You can see that's where we are. It's not staying highlighted, but you can see it's highlighted. Let's back up for a second. Alright. We open the URL as we were told to do. Let's try this. Let's close all of this, everything that we've had open here. Alright, so I'm going to go back to here, but I'm going to do this a little bit differently. Here is our, somewhere in here should be the debug, which of course I don't see. there's the debug. Copy here, so there it is. Close. And I guess I was still running the one that I shouldn't have been running, so let me get rid of that. Alright, so I'm going to run this. There we go. Alright. And load the developer tools. Okay, so we've done that. Click the Sources tab and select the Debug. Okay, that all looks good. It says, note the function that sets a value is placed the counter div in lines 7 through 11. Set a breakpoint on line 8. It says a blue arrow should now appear as shown in figure 520 or 222 rather on page 60, and it looks like it has. Alright, it says now click the button on the web page. Notice we're on line 1. Click the button. It says you should see line 8 in the debugger highlighted. Well, it isn't highlighted. The script stopped executing at that line. The function will determine what value will be placed in the counter. Note that the value of the count variable in the scopes tab is undefined. Well, there's my scopes and I don't have anything in there. Then they say we should click this and the value, which means step over into the next line, but this is not now this is not going. 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't understand why this is not working. It looks as though this has already been changed. All right. What I'm just having problems, I believe it's because this variable that's right here, and again, I could be wrong, it wouldn't be the first time, but I believe that variable should be defined inside of here. So I think what they want is for us to go back into our actual editor here, and where we have this, they want us to flip these two lines. So they want the var count equal 1 to be put in here. Still have that there. And this has not been changed now. I have no idea why. So stop that, stop that. Come bring this back up. Save. File. Save. It's not letting me save this. Good gosh almighty. Not even sure what the heck is going on to make this be so goofed up. Well, as you can see, I'm running into some trouble here, so I'm just going to finish the rest of the chapter. I don't know what the problem is, but we'll figure it out and we'll talk about it in class if I have a chance to look at it before then. So I'm just going to jump up to page 63. It says, so how do you debug jQuery or AngularJS? Well, they're just JavaScript. As it says, to debug AngularJS or jQuery, you use the non-minified version of the library in your project. We'll talk about that later on as we go. The last thing that's discussed in the chapter here, in the last 2 or 3 pages of the chapter, is analyzing network traffic. And as the author says, this can be a valuable tool used in debugging JavaScript. All right. It displays information about each request from the browser that's sent to the web server. It gives you a better understanding of the data being transferred and other types of requests. And they show you some of the stuff here on the bottom of page 63 and some more on the top of page 64, including the URL path, the method that's being used, the status, whether it was successful or not, the type of data retrieved by the request, the initiator or who sent the request, the size, the latency, and the timeline. And it's mentioned on the bottom of the next page. So here's all the stuff that they're talking about in here. And the author says, with some complex pages, you may have too much traffic to try to debug all the requests. The filter option will allow you to just look for what it is you are looking for. For instance, headers. All right, there's also, as mentioned here, there is a preview, which shows a preview of the request data, response, cookies, and timing. Now, I would call that presentation a C at best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Google, and I'm going to say tutorial on Chrome Developer Tools. All right, and here's one from Chrome itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that thing and I'm going to copy it, just throw it into a I'll throw it into a Word file. All right, now, and you know what? I'm sure this won't be a cure-all either, because there'll probably be some good things and maybe some not so good things about what's in this article. But at least it might help get you started. So let's go in and copy that in right now so we've got that and I don't forget about doing it later. Looks like this is about a 9-page article. So there's the Dev Tools window. Inspecting the DOM and styles. Working with the console. Debugging JavaScript, improving network performance. These are all things that we have just looked at. Audits, which we did not look at. Improving rendering performance. I just did that. I don't know what I hit. JavaScript and CSS performance. Inspecting storage. And as it says there, there's further reading, so I don't think. All right. So you will have that Chrome DevTools overview, which I will make sure to save out there to the system also. Now, with that said, I'm sure there's a lot of other articles out here. Some are probably pretty good. Some are probably not that good. All right. Chrome DevTools tutorial from Code School. I don't know if this is free or not. Some of the stuff in Code School is free. Some of the stuff in Code School is not free. So you could take a look at that if you wanted to. Discover DevTools again from Code School. Introduction to Chrome Developer Tools Part 1 from HTML5 Rocks, which is a great website. So we'll look at that one later. Don't have time to go through that with you right now. But notice that there is a thing over here too from there's an online video tutorial for Chrome Developer Tools on YouTube, which may or may not be good, but it's only 9 minutes long, so even if it is good, it's certainly not very long. Well, 312 hits and 299 are positive, so probably it's pretty good.
Hi, this is Amit from Digital Inspiration, and in today's episode,
and I'll tell you what else I'll do, just to be sure. I'm going to go into YouTube, and I'm sure the first, or one of the first ones I'm going to get hit here is here's that one. Wait, Chrome Developer Tools could do that. Chrome Developer Tools for CSS, Chrome Developer Tools tutorial, Chrome Developers Tools in an evening. Well, it's also got 10,000 hits on it. So let's look at that one.
Cool. So my name's Aaron Shellhorn. I am.
So I'll give you these two also. All right. And that pretty much finishes, I believe, the material that we were talking about for Chapter 2. All right. Again, it'll probably run a little bit smoother, hopefully at least in class. And when I come back, I'll be going over Lesson 3, which is on Understanding Dynamic Web Page Anatomy. All right, we'll talk about that shortly.